Good evening. My name is Michael Bose. I work for Recurrent Energy. Thank you again for finding a few minutes on your agenda tonight. I just wanted to just brief overview of Recurrent Energy. We're a leading solar PV developer in North America. We have over 515 megawatts of facilities in operation and construction currently, and 1.5 gigawatts of contracted projects. More importantly, in Kern County, we have 4 operating facilities, including our RE Rosamond 1 and RE Rosamond 2 projects, which I'll talk about briefly in a second. 3 currently under construction, and 2 proposed projects, our RE Astoria and Garland project, which again I'll touch on briefly later. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Some of you may be familiar with RE Rosamond 1 and 2. These facilities were completed last year. They're located near the intersection of 60th and Favorito, near the Landsgaard community, 5 miles northwest of Rosamond. Again, the projects were completed last year. 2 projects, 40 megawatts total. We're currently powering about 10,000 average California homes. And as you can see from the photo, when construction was completed, the site was fully seeded with a native vegetation. And we're not aware of any current complaints about dust or any other issues with the facility. Our first proposed project is the RE Astoria project. It's a 175 megawatt project located on roughly 2,000 acres that are being analyzed for the project. The project will be connecting into the Willie substation on 170th. And the draft EIR for the project is currently circulating, and we are hoping to get to a December Board of Supervisors hearing with that project. We also have a proposed RE Garland project. This is trailing a little behind the Astoria project. It's a 200 megawatt project, also analyzing about 2,000 acres, located between 205th and 240th. The NOP, which is the Notice of Preparation, basically the first step in the EIR process, is currently underway, and we're hoping to receive approvals for this project next year. Both RE Astoria and RE Garland, we intend to start construction next year. Again, I wanted to be really brief, but Amy Epstein, one of my associates, is here. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have about the projects. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Mr. Jacabson.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said that's a 41 megawatt output of the wind going?
The operating
land
facilities.
promise?
Yes, 2 separate projects, 20 megawatts each.
And it does 10,000 houses?
10,000 average California houses.
And how much would that project cost?
How much
Building out there?
to construct the project?
Yeah.
I don't know how much it costs.
So do you have any idea how much it costs per house? You know, to build that thing and then divide that out by the houses, how much per house?
I don't know off the top of my head how much it costs to build the project.
Where do you get those figures? Where can I get those figures?
Google.
Not necessarily.
We do have those figures. Obviously, I don't know them off the top of my head. Those typically are not figures that we would share with the community.
Is a lot of this publicly funded?
A lot of the construction.
Uh-huh.
There's currently what's called the ITC. It's a tax credit offered by the federal government where 30% of the cost of a good portion of the project, not all of the project, can be returned to a participant in the project through a tax credit.
I was just wondering how much a house, you got all that kind of money to build that area. And just how much it costs for one house?
I apologize. I don't know the dollar figure of what it costs to build this way, so I can't answer that.
Those figures are available.
Let's ask the applicant question. That's an excellent question, but when you say it provides power for 10,000 houses, those 10,000 houses are not paying for that project. All of the Southern California ratepayers, even in Southern California, all over California, are paying the rate. Those 10,000 houses are not paying for those megawatts.
That's correct. I should get more
Right.
clear. The facilities tie into a substation. The substation ties into the grid. So there aren't a specific 10,000 homes that are being powered by this facility. We put in
questions?
Well, there was a couple of questions. In general, are you changing anything in the way that you're going to be building out these new projects on 70 West other than the way you built the ones by Lance Promise?
In regards to construction sequencing?
Yes.
So, and Lorelei can speak to this better than I could, but since the Rosamond projects were approved and constructed, Kern County has continued to refine their requirements for dust mitigation and dust control. What we're finding on the RA Story project, which again is further along than the Garland project, is that those measures continue to be enhanced. One of the new measures is a phasing requirement. So we're no longer going to be able to basically clear the entire project at one time. We're going to have to go out there incrementally in phases. With that, there's other items as well that have changed, but that's really the most dramatic that we've seen so far that will help mitigate dust coming off the projects.
Well, and the other question, are you changing primarily farmland, so you're not going to create a lot of dust, or are you just going to be mowing down weeds, or what are you going to be doing as far as getting the land ready to
That's a great question. So these projects are very flat. So the RA Astoria project, the first project, I don't have an exact percentage, but a small amount of the actual project site will actually be graded. The technique that will be used is what they call mow and roll, where the vegetation is mowed and then it's rolled to prevent tripping hazards and other issues for the workers. So we try to minimize the grading when possible.
And how much farmland are you taking out of your 2,000-acre project to make into solar?
For the RA Astoria project, there's about 250 acres that is currently mapped as prime. But that 250 acres hasn't been farmed and hasn't been irrigated within the last 4 years. So if that 250 acres were to be remapped today, it would no longer qualify as prime ag. A similar situation for RE Garland. I think there's about 450 acres. Similar situation, hasn't been farmed or irrigated within the last 4 years. So also would not meet the definition of prime.
I have a question. When you purchased that land, did you purchase the water rights? You own the water rights for whatever wells are in there?
So clarification, we do not own the property at this time. We have an option to purchase the property. So we're not, can't say that we're the landowner right now. Regarding the water rights, I don't know if I am qualified to answer that question because honestly I don't know. It's my understanding that we have rights to the underlying water table, the aquifer underneath our property, but beyond that I'm not going to pretend to know the details regarding the water rights.
Do you require a lot of water with your electrical service out there? Coolers or anything like that?
So during operation, we actually require very little water. It's primarily just to wash the panels. In our EIR, conservatively, we're assuming that we're going to wash the panels four times per year. But what we're finding on our Rosamond 1 and Rosamond 2 projects is it's been in operation since last year. We've only had to wash the panels one time. So the numbers that are being analyzed for Garland and Astoria are very good. So to give you an example, for RE Rosamond 1 and 2, 40 megawatts, we used about 20,000 gallons of water to wash all the panels for both of those projects.
Thank you very much. 3 separate documents or the all in one?
All in one.
And this is available at the library?
Yes.
We might have it on disc too already, Lorelei. I know we get some discs and from time to time, I don't know what to do with it.
I'm not sure what we sent the RMAC, but it's online. It's in the library as a hard copy.
On your website?
It's on our website.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
I just had one thing I'd like to talk about today. On Friday, I sent an email to the RMAC directors. Sadly, it came about 15 minutes after the final agenda was sent out. So to add anything to the agenda wouldn't have been prudent at the time. Included in that letter was in that email was a letter from Supervisor Zach Scribner, an attachment to the RMAC directors. I'd just like to read that now. Dear Rosamond Municipal Advisory Council
I
members.
think we all have a copy of it here, right?
Yes, all directors have.
We need to read it for what reason? Go ahead. Continue reading.
Dear Rosamond Municipal Advisory Advisory Council in 2006, you have provided valuable advice to the Second District Supervisor and an important information forum for the Rosamond community. The formation of the RMAC created a place for discussions of the everyday real-life issues that affect the community, conditions of the streets and how to get them repaired, dialogue with the Kern County Sheriff and California Highway Patrol, updates from the Southern Kern Unified School District and the Rosamond Community Services District. As an advisor to my office, you have been effective at bringing special or specific issues that need attention by county government alike so that we can work together. And I've appreciated the diligence and thoughtful public dialogue your council has conducted on issues. An example of such diligence is your recent presentation by Southern California Edison representative on the streetlight issue, which provided an important format for accurate information to the community. I am therefore very concerned at the recent actions of your council in creating an atmosphere of attack and grandstanding in the presentation of the Rosamond Community Services District credit card discussion. One of your members, Olaf Landsgaard, has been personally sued by the general manager of the RCSD, and that lawsuit is pending. The county has declined to provide a defense for Mr. Landsgaard in that lawsuit. It is my understanding that just prior to or shortly after the date the lawsuit was filed, Mr. Landsgaard used his position on the RMAC to present financial information out of context for discussion as an RMAC public agenda item related to the very matter for which he's being sued. In my opinion, it's inappropriate for a member of your council to use the RMAC in that manner, i.e., to further his own personal interests. If your council wishes some investigation of the finances of the RCSD, then the appropriate action through a proper item on the agenda is to have a vote of the full council to refer a request to the grand jury for an investigation of your allegations, or to ask my office to consider a board referral if you believe there has been some actionable offense. You are not qualified to perform such investigations yourselves, and it is inappropriate to allow the council's agenda to be diverted to further a member's personal interest or to use the council for political gain. I ask your council publicly to discuss this letter at your next meeting and take formal actions necessary to get the council back on track for the important business of discussions and education supportive of public health and safety in the Rosamond community. Examples of useful discussion topics are enclosed within this letter. Your council continues to divert these important resources to other agendas. I will be considering the usefulness of the RMAC. Sincerely, Zach Springer, 2nd District Kern County Supervisor. And there was, as the letter stated, an additional document page on the back with several discussion topics for future meetings. And I would request now that the directors discuss this item that I talked about.
I don't know if that's appropriate. It's not an agenda item, and I think we should probably set it to that.
The thing is, it should have been an agenda item.
It's not. I guess the question is, if it contains inaccuracies, it contains something that's probably appropriate for you or someone to look at as far as how unincorporated areas are treated. And that's a discussion for another day. I really don't want to get into it.
Well, wait a minute, according to I read about the Brown Act, we're not even supposed to be, if it's not on the agenda, and we didn't have the time to put it on the agenda, then we should not even be discussing this, correct?
The only discussion you can have right now, because it's not on the agenda, is whether or not you should be putting it on the agenda next time we discuss.
Exactly, so
Okay.
therefore we
So,
have to
so, I mean, anything beyond a mere, we should discuss this.
Well, we
next
can
meeting.
always have a special meeting as well.
You could.
I would like to make a motion then to put the items on the agenda for our next meeting, unless there's a request for a special meeting.
Yeah, we do have our regular special meetings on the first Thursdays of the month.
Well, we can.
Unless you want to,
Well,
actually pick a different
it
date.
doesn't have to be a specific day.
Well, it is actually.
There's a motion
Yes.
to put it on the agenda for the next one.
In the meeting, and we can make the next meeting, actually our
That
next.
would be part of the discussion of the motion. So in order to
Do you want a second?
to graduate that, well, let's have a
Yeah,
second. And I'll do that.
Okay.
Okay, so you're going to second it then? Yes, I am. Okay. So then it's my understanding then that it's closed as of now.
No.
According to the Brown Act.
We moved to second to place on the next meeting.
You have a motion, you have a second to place it on the next meeting, which means you call for a vote.
Okay.
If somebody
Or
wants to
discussion,
make, or a discussion, or if somebody wants to make another motion, they could
Okay.
also do that.
Okay, so then at this
Or
point
no,
then.
exactly, well, that would be, an amendment would be another motion.
Right.
Is there a time the supervisor can come and address us directly then? No.
Well, first things first.
Well, with the motion's pending, right?
Yeah, he already seconded the motion, so now we
Then we
have
need discussion. So I guess the question is.
Now it's discussion. Apparently this was.
Well, we can't discuss.
Wait a minute, hang on. We had a second,
You have a
Then we
second.
call for discussion, correct? Yes.
All right.
Or call for a vote.
Call for the question.
Well, which you don't have to honor.
Okay.
And then we'll-
You have a motion, you have a second. At this stage, if somebody would like to amend that to change the date,
Okay.
they could do so. Or you can move forward with your vote. Just because you've got a motion doesn't mean that you have to completely finish that, because obviously you have other people that might want to amend that motion, change it another way. So, the reality is, we had one motion. Before you got a second, somebody could have made another motion. And somebody could have seconded either one of those motions. At this stage, we have a motion for putting it on the regular meeting. Do we have anybody that would like a motion for a special meeting?
Well, hang on a second, before we get there, you need to be aware that we have 2 meetings a month in our bylaws.
Okay?
Second meeting of the month would be in October. The first meeting of the month in October would be October the 9th.
They're both regular meetings, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's our option to have a meeting on the first Thursday of the month, and we
Okay.
typically don't have any planning issues on the first Thursday of the month, so we typically don't have a meeting on that day. But given the fact that this looks like could be a rather lengthy item, we could do that if the other members concur, and if it meets with their schedule.
Well, yeah, and that's a healthy discussion. You know,
So right now we have a motion for October 16th.
So for our next meeting, whatever, well, no, I guess it'll be October 2nd.
So
No,
mo-
our next meeting, which we normally carry, is once a month.
Correct.
So it would be October 16th.
Correct.
Okay, so the motion is
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
16th.
second.
Then I'd also make the motion that we go ahead and have our planning meeting as provided for our bylaws on October 2nd.
Pending securing of the building.
But then securing the building,
Yeah, because we don't.
Currently through the Parks Department, you have this building every third Thursday.
every third Thursday. So I'm moving for a separate motion to have it on October 2nd, which is our regular, or at least the one that's reflected in our bylaws for.
Did we just vote to have it on the 16th? Why
Oh,
are we
yeah,
call for
that's
a
fine.
motion?
Phil, where are we with it?
Okay. You made a motion on the 16th for this agenda item.
Right.
As I understand Mr. Landsgaard, he's making a separate motion for the second,
RMAC to meet on the 2nd.
for its planning items, which would not be the letter, but other agenda items. So in other words, a meeting you normally don't have but could have on the 2nd, you have a motion on the floor to have that meeting on the 2nd in which you address planning items.
I think we passed the motion to have it on the next meeting,
Which is the 16th.
which right now is the 16th. But if we move the meeting up to the 2nd, then
He
it's.
changed, he said this, okay.
Yeah, you said the 16th of the
He
month.
said the 16th in the motion.
Yeah, that's.
He modified his motion to
You
16th.
said the 16th.
Well, I think he changed the motion, but that's okay.
Who did?
But I guess the bottom line is, can we figure out when we want to talk about this letter?
All in
Yeah,
favor of
well,
October
You
16th?
just said the 16th.
The 16th was voted on and approved.
That's what I thought.
So let's have a discussion.
That's simple.
Okay?
Okay, next.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so now we can move on to.
Well, I have a motion on the floor to have a meeting on the 2nd. Anybody want to second that?
So
16th.
You approve the 16th for the agenda item of this. There's a motion, well,
Not on the floor yet.
state your exact
I
motion.
move that we have a regular bylaw meeting as required by the bylaws on October 2nd.
Okay.
So then now.
And
But
to
there's no
discuss at that meeting what?
Discuss any planning items
Okay.
that are otherwise before the board, or should be before the board.
By planning items, you mean land use planning type items?
Land use planning, I would also refer to any, I haven't seen the exhibit attached to this letter, the enclosure attached to this letter. If there's anything in that letter that has to do with planning, that should be included as well.
The letter's already been set to be agendized for the 16th.
Well, it does, I appreciate that. Where's the attachment?
The judgment is on the
It
back.
looks like this.
Okay.
Is that? No.
It's right here. The suggestion. Are you referring to the suggestions, Olaf?
Yeah,
Yeah, he didn't get a copy.
Oh, okay.
So now we discuss. Well, I never heard a second to that motion.
Yes,
So
sir.
we
Second.
Back to the dice.
Do we need
Go to
discussion?
discussion or second?
Yeah, we need a discussion on it, any more discussion on this motion? Well, first there has to be a second to the motion, I haven't heard one. And if that's the case, then the motion dies for lack of a second. Okay, so then we need a second.
No, there is no second.
There's no first.
I made it first.
You made
What
the
is-
motion.
Okay, and then,
There's no second, so the motion dies.
So it dies for lack of second. Okay. Okay, then we move on to next. We get a report from the Kern County
well,
Sheriff's.
now that wasn't so hard, was it?
But before we move on,
Do we have anything else from the Kern County Supervisor?
Is that it?
actually, also,
All finished?
okay. Also, before we move on from the supervisor's portion, I would also like to make a motion for a censor.
For what?
Censor.
Oh, for the, you want that discussed on October 16th?
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
You mean censure?
Censure,
Yes,
C-E-N-S-U-R-E.
So you're making a motion to put a censure on the agenda. To censure, you need to say who the censure would be also.
The censor would be on Director Landsgaard.
So you've got a motion for an agenda item on the 16th for censuring Director Landsgaard.
I'll second that.
Jack, that's out of order. Where is it that you can censor anybody on this board? You got some authority that says you can tell a public official not to talk? Where you got that?
This is not about.
Yes, it is.
No, it's
Actually,
not.
Where do you
Actually,
come up with
This
that?
is not about.
Stop. We have a motion, we have a second, we need a vote. We're not going to discuss the values of the censure at this point. We're not discuss the legal aspect of the censure at this point. Those are going to be done on the 16th.
And so we need a second.
We've already
We've already seconded, I seconded it.
Okay, then, all in favor?
All in
Wait, discussion. We're going to discussion on the motion.
Okay,
Object to the discussion is out of order. First of all, that particular item is not on board. It's a Brown Act violation to bring it up.
It's not a Brown Act violation to bring a motion to put something on the agenda.
Where does the agenda say in the Kern County Supervisor we get to add a bunch of things on the agenda? That's
We're
not,
That's a letter presented by a Kern County supervisor.
I understand that.
One of the responses to the letter presented by a Kern County supervisor is a motion on this. We can make it under this level, we can make it under community announcements, we can make it under public comment period, we can make it under director's comments. Wherever you want that to be on this agenda, we can do it. But a censure motion can be made to put it on the agenda. If you can't put items on the agenda, when are you going to put items on the agenda? Who's controlling your agenda if the board is? The board controls the agenda. So at this point in time, whether or not you want to say it's out of order because it should be back at director's comments, or now, is really a moot point. You have a motion and a second for a censure to be put on the agenda. Not to censure anybody right now, not to talk about the value of the censure, but to simply put it on the agenda for discussion on the 16th.
All right.
That's your motion. Just like your letter will be discussed on the 16th. There's nothing else being done, no other discussion, no other value of the censure, no other value of the letters being discussed. It's simply to add an item to an agenda item on the 16th. There's a motion, a second, and we're now at vote, correct?
Okay,
Yep.
so, assuming that we've had discussion.
Assuming anybody wanted to add.
Are we finished with discussion?
You get a very kind of discussion.
Does you get anything
We're done.
to add?
My point of order, if two board members want to put it on the agenda, it goes on the agenda. You don't have to have a vote.
Well, okay.
Is that right?
That depends on what your bylaws conclude.
I think that's they don't need a vote. It should go on the agenda. There are two of them said yes. You should.
Quite frankly, a lot of public agencies have, or the two board members can add something on the agenda if they want to, without having it as a motion and an item at a meeting. Some also require a motion and an item at a meeting. There's nothing out of line by them asking to put it on the agenda.
When we have a first and a second, it should go on the agenda, period.
You know,
Okay,
first and
then we're
second.
gonna put it on the agenda.
Okay.
All right, next time it goes on the agenda.
That's the way you'd like it rather than having a vote, but I just assume you have a vote whether or not to put this on the agenda.
I was gonna have a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye. Careful, it's like 4 names.
All in favor? Majority.
So are you going
So it's on
to,
the
would you
You
do
have
it,
one,
yes or
you
no?
have one no, you have 4 or 5 is?
We had 5.
You don't have to vote, so it's 4 to 1.
Okay, it's either 4 to 1 or 5 to 1, I'm not sure which. Goes on the agenda.
Okay, so when that completes that portion of our agenda, then Kern County Supervisor.
Painting a rehab recovery building. The County Board of Supervisors offered Hummel Hall to us. And we also were offered the Rosamond Community Service Building on Diamond Street. We had to do some additional paperwork, it looked like, to get Hummel Hall on a regular basis if we were going to schedule it for every week. And it looked like the turnout we would have would fit into the other building initially, so we started with Rosamond Community Service Center at 2645 Diamond Street. Our first turnout was 17 people came for the recovery meeting, which was really a good turnout. And we had like 10 people to support. The church from B Street, the 2900 block of B Street showed up. They are now supplying coffee. And our second meeting was set up this week for Tuesday and Wednesday, where the females, narcotics, and basically not Narcotics Anonymous, but this program is based on what's called Celebrate Recovery and a Purpose-Driven Life. The pastor went with those programs. The Kern County Sheriff's Department supplied a speaker from Garden Pathways to come and speak with the girls this week. It was very good turnout. 7 women showed up the following week on Tuesday, and last night we had 7 men show up again, so I thought the second week was really going to show up, it was going to work, and they were there. And I believe this thing's going to go way up, because they all promised they're going to be there again. The whole program, as I explained to all of them when they got there, not to be worried about law enforcement or any, say if someone has a warrant, that they can show up. We're not going to arrest them for misdemeanor warrants at this place. They're going to be their place for recovery, and we're going to supply them with speakers, pastoring, and eventually we're taking what they need after the meeting. All I do is come in and get a list of what they need. And some of the requests have been anything from, well, eventually I'll need to get a TV and some media so I can play some movies for them, that type of stuff. Some of them wanted, of course, in the end, a lot of them are wanting to somehow get jobs once they're sober. Some of these programs from Laredo and pretrial are already set up where they have employees who come in and offer these folks jobs once they get clean. I will tell you, I was very surprised by the turnout and the people I saw there. You know, for us all to be in the room together was pretty good. And they assured me that that they will be there again, and I really think the turnout's going to be good for us. This program is set up again not for someone who can come in and say, hey, I've got 90 days in jail and then I'm on probation. I have to go to so many classes and sign a card. They're not allowed to do that here. They're not going to come in and sign a card and say, hey, this is for court, because then they don't really want it in my mind. And this group has bought into that too. Nobody's there to get out of jail. Everybody's there to get clean. And so it really has, you can see at the end they're happy, and I believe it's going to work. So I'm guessing next week, that building, it says in there, will seat 130 people. So I think we'll probably get 20, I'm expecting next week, and it'll grow from there. This Purpose-Driven Life program is a 40-week program. And then from there on, if they can get in that, they'll be steady. But again, I had some surprising people I did not know that would show up, and I was very happy when they showed up. Some guys that have been on drugs for 20 years that I never thought would step in there, and they were in there voluntarily without a court case, and I'm looking forward to this thing working. As far as we followed up with the 10-month instead of the 8-month thing, we're still at about 20% reduction in crime for the Sheriff's Department on all levels of theft, vandalism, vandalism, and assaults. Basically, we're about 20% down from last year, and looking good at a pretty good recovery rate on our burglaries. We had a burglary yesterday, a residential door kick that we were able to solve. We're getting a lot more input, I think, from the community, and I really think this program is going to go better with the recovery. That's a big part of it. This has to be a big part of it, because with AB 109, a lot of the narcotics users are going to be out. They're going to be out. That's all there is to it. And if we can get them clean, and they want to get clean and get them fitted into society where they have jobs, we're all going to be better for it. And I just think it'll work for all of you. My next thing I'm going to step into is I'm going to go to the big churches all around town. 2 churches have contacted me already for additional help. The church on B Street, they want to set up bands, Christian bands. They give away blankets, food. They've already offered their services to these folks, and that's where we're at. So that's our report for this, and I'm sure it's going to be better next month.
We were at a meeting with AVEC yesterday, and the water issues are becoming more and more. AVEC's not seeing a lot of the profit, not profit, but the revenue. They thought there'd be about $5 million under, because they're not getting us buying water from us, all the water people. We had our strategic meeting, last week, was it? 2 weeks ago. Got some input from the community as far as what they would like to see Rosamond, how we're doing, and where we're going to be long term. And a lot of good information came out of that. I think we're kind of on target, but it's still been fine-tuned, and we're going to present that complete. We had our budget that was submitted 3 weeks ago, and the budget numbers look good. We're probably about $900,000 to the plus. But when we say a surplus, that's not a whole bunch of money considering the dynamics of the water. While we were at the AVEC meeting, their assistant general manager said that Santa Barbara County is paying up to 1,800 to 2,000 gallons per acre foot because they have no water. So you think about that number there. Then this morning we had our finance meeting to talk about what kind of monies we have. We have to go buy water, and they're talking about the farmers in Central California prepared to pay $3,000 an acre foot. But what makes me feel good as a director on the board is that we have around 3,700 acre feet of water. That's about a year and a half, right at 2 years of water storage for our community. So we're in really good shape. But the dynamic that's going on now, everywhere, the water is a serious concern. We're doing conservation. Some questions that come up before about what we're doing now is not enough. I don't know what enough is. I just know if you look at the rain totals that we do not have, you're looking at the Santa Barbara, they're paying $20 million to kick in a desalination plant that they have mothballed, but now they got to start it back up, but they're still having to buy water. So all of us are in the same boat, but we're in pretty good shape. That 3,700 acre feet that's in the ground that we can pull out at any time puts us in a really good place. The district's good number-wise. Everything's good for the most part. Our greatest concern is our water security, and we're secured with the water. And we've done a real good job, and the community's done a great job. I don't know how much more we can tell them to do, because we had a 20% reduction for the 2020 plan that we met, and we had to ask them to do more because that was a state mandate. So we're doing good with that. Our wastewater treatment plant, we're pushing along. If you read the paper, the gold mine, they're getting closer and closer, which means hopefully we'll have our water ready when they're ready. So all those things, all our paperwork's complete. It's been submitted, everything they've asked us for its documentation. Lahadin has it to approve our wastewater treatment, our wastewater to be used for projects. So we're kind of proud along, and everyone's in good shape.
September 27th, we're going to have our Armed Forces Appreciation Day Parade. We have about 42 booths that are going to set up in the park. We're working with the school district. We're going to do a test drive car. So if you come out and test drive one of their cars, they will get $20 for everybody that comes out to test drive the cars that day. So it will be a good fundraiser for the school system. We also still do have room in our parade if you guys would like to have an entry. I think I asked last month that...
Unfortunately, I'm not available on Saturdays anymore.
Oh, okay. We also have the Renew Biz grant cycle that's up at this time. It ends on September 30th. We might have about 15 applications from the Rosamond area. does take a lot of work to put them together. And the chamber's looking at applying for 2 grants this cycle, so we should get that done. And on the Diamond Street project, we did meet with Mark from Bakersfield, and he talked about some of the changes that they had with all the government stuff that comes up. It looks like we're going to have a few more street lights in the area, and it sounds like the striping of the street won't be done for at least 1 year after the project's done. And it's just part of that paperwork. And that's about it for the chamber.
This is the 3rd driest year on record in the state of California, and there doesn't seem to be any any advances or anything else looking at that's going to change. Pardon me. So AVEC and the other state water contractors, of course, are limited to their 5% that they actually just got in September. But so far, AVEC and the other local state water contractors are able to supply their customers what their customers' needs are this year, partly from water banking, partly from carryovers and those kinds of things. They have allocated some money towards the programs that the cities of Palmdale and Lancaster have got called Cash for Grass. They're actually doing more of that, where they're paying people that they will basically take their grass out and they will get some certain amount of dollars for doing that. Probably the main interest is on November 1st, all 3 local state water contractors are sponsoring a water conservation expo. And there's been publicity about that already in the Valley Press I've seen, and should be it's a free thing. They're going to have both seminars, and they're going to have a lot of booths and so on, different types of vendors and so on. So it's a good way to learn how to conserve water, because as again Mr. Webb said, we just need to be conserving as much as possible. One of the things, AVEC had purchased some land called the Bench Ranch, and I'm not exactly sure where that is. It's on the west side in LA County, and they're looking at actually installing wells and being able to pump more water out. So that is a little bit disconcerting, but then when you talk to people, of course I'm not involved in any of the details with the adjudication process going on, but one of the things the adjudication process will do is limit how much various folks and entities and so on are able to pump out of the ground. So it's going to be interesting to see how those things go in the future. AVEC has looked at preliminary planning options for 2015 if it still stays as dry, or actually if it's a little bit wetter, I guess you could call it, maybe not quite as dry. If the state water project allocation is 15% to all the various contractors, then everything would probably be okay and no outrageous prices or anything like that. If it starts going less and less, again this year it was only 5%, then there may be some more drastic things that will have to be done as far as supply and or conservation, but of course that's all speculation right now. That's basically about it.
Good evening, everybody. Rosamond Youth Football and Cheer is well underway. We're in our 3rd week of play. For the next 2 weekends, the 20th and 27th, we'll be here playing locally at the high school stadium. Our event started at 8 o'clock in the morning, get over last game at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and hope to see you guys out there and supporting our youth. Thank you.
Dennis Shoffner, I'm in charge of civic outreach for Edwards Air Force Base. Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking. What a load of crap. I brought several recent copies of the Desert Wings for you to take a look at. So when we have a break, feel free to take a look. The articles that are here are posted on the Edwards Air Force Base homepage. If you go to www.edwards.af for Air Force.mil for military, look at the columns and you can catch up on a lot of what's going on out of the base. For example, there was an article there talking about the Travis Brass. There's one Air Force band that serves Western America, west of the Rockies. That's the Air Force Band of Golden West, which is located in Travis. They have several ensembles that travel around. The Travis Brass came here and performed, had several performances in our area, Cal City, Lancaster, Santa Clarita. The reason that I'd like to have the band show up is to provide our local citizens with a different kind of Air Force sound. You're no doubt familiar with the other kind of Air Force sound. We live under the high-level supersonic corridor. Anybody ever heard of sonic booms?
Those are earthquakes.
Yes, yeah. All right. If anybody ever want to hear a sonic boom and want to call the base, but you don't know who to call, there we go.
277-3517.
277-3517 is my phone number. So if you hear something you want to know, what was that? I'm the guy. Okay, it's a thin slice of heaven getting all
Right,
this.
it's in every bathroom.
But that's what you do. The airspace here, we have 20,000 square miles of restricted airspace. We're outside it right here, but there's a high-level supersonic corridor right over this area. It extends out west from the other side of Ventura County, isn't it?
It's a military operation.
No, it's a high-level supersonic corridor. Okay, and it extends in Ventura County, this side of Gorman and Fraser Park. You're taking something else. Okay, and it goes all the way to kind of east-northeast, all the way out to the Colorado River. Aircraft have to be at least 30,000 feet above the sea level to fly there. If you want to learn anything about it, going back to that website again, look for R2508 in the right-hand column, and there's a user's handbook, a user's brief. You can learn more about the airspace than you probably ever want to learn in your life. And if you want to, while you're at that, look at the top of the page. One of those words at the top is the word tours. We offer tours at the base. I've had to cut back from 2 general public tours a month to 1 because I have a lot more involvement in the honorary commander program than I've ever had. However, the tours are available. They're free, but reservations are required. Go on there. It tells you what information we need to make the reservation. By the way, there are no openings until at least December. That's how popular it is. I think it's mainly popular because of the tour guide, but that's just the point is, actually got some help. One of the things you'll notice in the papers if you come and take a look is that several buildings are coming down. Remember the demake facility? That's going away. The whole point, there was a specialized crane. Remember that lifted the orbiter up and the 747 would pull underneath and they would lower down, bolted on, and they would taxi out and take off. Well, there's no more orbiter, so why have the crane? So that's going away. The old water tower that was at the south base by the fire station that was along the rocket sled track is being demolished. Building 1609B, which is where environmental used to be for a while, that's been torn down. So there are a number of buildings and all of this is in the name of becoming more efficient with the buildings that we have. In addition to the general public tours that I talked about that are just once a month, we also offer large group tours. So if you know of a group or school field trip or homeschool organization or looking at Randy's, I think it was a senior citizen excursions, then you're welcome to book those on other days. Those fill up quickly too. I actually can't add a large group tour until at least March at this point. But we're doing those. I mentioned about the noise reports. Speaking of which, in years past, organizations have come to the base and asked for a flyover of a specific event. You know, they're having that wounded warrior thing coming up, and they want to fly over with it. The Pentagon isn't approving any. It's not up to us to approve it. There's a process that goes to the Pentagon, and they've just totally cut that off. The only aircraft that are doing flyovers now are the Thunderbirds and Blue Angels, if they happen to be in the area and suits are fancy. Don't know if it's going to pick up anytime soon, but probably we'll have full flyovers long before we have another air show at the base. I don't look for another air show in my lifetime. Consequently, we have the LA County Air Show now at Fox Field on our annual basis. Overhearing their folks talk about that, they haven't decided if it's going to be in the spring. They really wanted it in the fall. The weather's more reliable in September and October than the other time of the year. So Edwards is still the largest employer in the valley. We've got over 10,500 people who work there. Of that number, only about 2,200 and change are military. All the rest of the government's a civil service like I am, or contractors, people working for private companies doing business there. So it's still a major force. A lot of changes coming up. The F-16 folks are going to be moving all their aircraft around to where the chase aircraft are. I might test out school. It looks like F-22 is the last rumor I heard was that they're going to be moving down to where the F-16s are. We have folks that are showing up that are involved with KC-46, the new tanker for the base, or the new tanker for the Air Force. We don't have a plane yet. I don't know if there's a plane. But, that's going on. Air Force Plant 42 is now part of the 412 test line. So they used to be a whole separate entity, but now they're hardwired to the base. And as far as Edwards Air Force Base, that's all I've got, but I do have one other report I'd like to give. I'm on a committee that meets once a year. It's part of the East Kern Air Pollution Control District. They have a motor vehicle emission reduction program, and grants are available for things like motor vehicle replacement, taking older, more polluting vehicles off the road and replacing them with less polluting or zero polluting vehicles, mobile emission reduction projects, projects involving construction, like paving roads to reduce the levels of PM10 particulate matter to 10 microns. I guess how you say it. There are a number of projects like that that are available. I have here the 2013 program thing. The 2014 one isn't out yet, but it will be soon. This one was released October 1st, before last. So we're coming up on the time. There have been folks in this room who have expressed interest in that, and I would sure love to have some Rosamond projects. I've been in this since 2008, and there haven't been very many Rosamond projects at all. The original thought behind that was we need to have the air as clean as possible to protect the missions at Edwards Air Force Base and at China Lake. So this is an East Kern thing. When you renew your license tag, there's a dollar per week that goes into that fund. So it's time for that. So
that goes under other. The East Kern Air Pollution Control District is a different thing. We can probably put that down as a special person as another thing.
Well, it doesn't come up that often. You know, this is the time of the year though.
Do we need to do something as a board on that, or what do we need to do?
No. I'll just keep you up to speed on when those meetings are going to be, and when the new.
When is the next
guy? Well, it has. They'll probably be in the spring.
The Rosamond Rotary Foundation, the Rosamond Rotary, is putting on a raffle for a 12-gauge shotgun. And it's a fundraiser for proceeds to go to the Wounded Warriors. So they're $5 a raffle ticket. And we're really excited about this because, normally raffles are TVs or this or that or the other, but this is a guide thing. So, nice 12 gauge, and yes, you have to go through all the paperwork, and, Eric is working with us at Carl's Hardware, and, you don't have to do all the hoops and make sure you do it right, and so then you'll get the gun. So, I have the tickets here. We're really excited about it, and $5 a ticket. And at the September Fest, we'll have a booth at Glendale Park, and there we will draw the winner. So, but you don't have to be present to win, but we just have between now and the September Fest to sell the tickets. So hopefully, yes, did you want $50 worth?
I understand why, Kathy, I understand why it's a shotgun, but I think something like a 30-30 would have been funnier.
Well, if this is really successful, or if you sweet talk,
Rifle raffle. Am I going too fast? Instead of shotgun.
The Rosamond Youth Football and Cheer, we're going to be playing locally in town this weekend and next weekend. Our first team starts at 8 o'clock in the morning.
What day?
This Saturday, the 20th. Yes, sir. And then next Saturday, the 27th, we will be at the Rosamond High School Stadium starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. The last game is starting at 4 in the afternoon.
Mike had another concern that maybe you expressed at the break. You can tell him about the lighting.
Yes, this year we're faced with a particular challenge. Normally this time of year when the sun starts getting darker sooner, we take and move our scheduled practice times earlier, and then when it gets too dark, we end up moving over to the high school to use their field, the stadium field. But the high school is now utilizing their facilities on a regular basis now through the evenings, and so the sharing, they get priority, and so the sharing of the field is not available to us on a consistent basis. And what I'm looking, having attended the meetings and stuff here, what I'm not seeing is a plan for future growth for lighting facilities for programs like the Rosamond Youth Football, and in any of the planning for the West Park area, the Tropics School, or the Rosamond Elementary. And so I'm hoping to get some attention that maybe somehow we can get some sponsorship to get lighting in one of those areas that are currently going to be built.
Thank you.
I want to talk about 3 items. The first, I want to remind you all that the governor signed groundbreaking groundwater legislation on Tuesday, and while you're an adjudicated basin, your economic stability of this county and keeping the doors open at our hospital and keeping the county happy and able to provide you services is dependent on our major China Lake, Edwards Air Force Base, ag, and oil. And the Tulare Basin, the 2 basins that must do groundwater sustainability plans, is the Tulare Basin, which is all up in Bakersfield, and the Indian Wells Valley. Those are the 2 that are medium and high. All the other ones are low and very low priority and only encouraged. This sustainability plan will require metering, it will require annual reports, and it will require everybody to make hard decisions about who's going to get water and who isn't. It is a very difficult situation. The county's involved, and I'm on that team, and we are in conversations in the Indian Wells Valley and also in the, but I want you to know, just because you're adjudicated, which means that you're exempted under the law, except that every year now, you will have to report annual water use, all water masters every year. And this is the state's way of keeping track of groundwater. It does not mean that you shouldn't keep track of this, because the decisions are going to have to be made about we just don't have enough groundwater and they're cutting back our surface water. And we have to make sure China Lake is safe, we have to make sure that we have jobs and that we have revenue. So that's one thing, just, and at some future point, if you're interested in the details of this water legislation, Phil and I are working on it, and we'll be glad to come, or have people come from the Kern County Water Agency and give you a brief. Second thing is that I'm tasked in the Indian Wells Valley, and I'm moving forward with an EIR to look at land uses, but also to do a zero-scape landscape ordinance for the unincorporated area up there, which we will implement. But the other board members have indicated that when I bring that forward in probably April of 2015, they want to look at it for the rest of the county. So this would be a zero-scape such as Lancaster, Palmdale, the Rosamond Community Services through CAS 1, and we're looking at that, but this would be in unincorporated areas, and it would include the front yards of new houses. So that's just something to keep on your radar screen. And then the other thing that's happening up there, which will affect Eastern Kern, is we're going to institute a pre-clearing permit. So we're going to bring forward to the board a proposal. If you have a piece of property and you want to build a house and you have 2 acres, then when you come in to build the house, you have to show us how much of that 2 acres you're going to clear. We're not going to let you scrub all the stuff off of it because there's just too much dust. If we don't get some more rain, we're going to have a dust bowl like 1977 when there was so much dust that it ended up in Sacramento and tore down trees in Bakersfield. You should go online and look at this YouTube video of this 1977 dust storm that started out here, went through Tehachapi, through Bakersfield, and literally the dust ended up in Sacramento. So this pre-clearing thing is something that will go through public hearings, and I will make sure that you are aware of it so that you can give us your input on it. Okay, that's 2. And then the third is animals. Animal services. I'm working with the Animal Control Commission to work through, and with the Animal Control new department, because they're their own department, Cheyenne Schul, to sort out the rules for rescues and for fostering of animals. So right now, all of those kinds of operations need an expensive conditional use permit from my department, and we've been working with the Animal Control Commission very successfully to come up with a different structure. So that people who have too many animals don't have too many animals, but people who are legitimately providing services for these animals don't have to go through a big expensive process in order to be permitted. And when we are ready to bring those forward, they will affect Eastern Kern and they will affect Rosamond. So I will bring forward to your RMAC the proposal so that we can start talking about it. And we are looking at this issue of how many dogs and cats can you have on your property? Because right now, you can have as many as you want, and then when I come out, or someone comes out and says, you have 90 cats, you're actually a rescue, the person says, they're all my personal pets, let me tell you their names. So this is, it's a problem. So we are going to be, the Animal Control Commission is really interested in this, and we're going to bring those issues forward and get the word out so that the rescues here, who are doing legitimate work and other things, can give us some input. That was it. Thank you.
Lorelei, anything about the Blue Eagle mining project?
I do. It is a underground mine for gold, and we're going through a permit process with the state. Underground mines actually are managed by the federal government, and we are doing the reclamation plan and the operation plans for the 1 acre of disturbance on the top. So that's what we're doing. And we're going through, we sent out a mitigated negative declaration, and we're looking for comments, and we're working out the conditions for it.
Where is it?
Now you got me stuck.
It's about 2 miles
2
north
miles
of Bacchus
north,
Road,
yeah,
and
north of
about
Bacchus.
75th Street West.
Yeah, so thank you, Olaf. It's compromised. Huh?
2 miles north of Bacchus Road on
Yeah.
75th Street West.
Yeah,
It's the main
75th
road that
Street
takes you into Granite Construction.
And it's a closed social stope line.
It's going to be underground mines.
Closed stope, that's what it
Is that really?
is. Okay. Any other comments? Stope.
Yeah,
Closed
oh,
stope.
yeah, in case anybody's interested, people ask me that all the time about, you know, how do they assess gold? If you go online, there's actually a special section of the tax assessor's book from the state for metals. Silver and gold are assessed on taxes completely different than anything else. The Golden Queen mine is going to be producing silver and gold in the next 15 years, and then aggregate after that. And so it actually is quite different than you know, what people think. It's not just assessed on the current value, future value. It's very complicated. But if anybody's interested, you can go online at the state level and look at the metals. Just so you know, there are no gold mines in California anymore. They put them out of business. So we are the only place that actually has the last heap leach gold and silver mine, and then this one. So this is that.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, moving on to the safety committee.
Just a,
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the public health and community welfare. I don't have anything. Do you have anything, Mr. Wright?
just briefly, I did discuss, Mr. Garrett had brought up the issue of the current, the AM PM, and it appears that it's in the plans for the new Rosamond Elementary School. When they build the elementary school, they move the one corner to the other corner. The school is going to give away some land, so they have a bigger, wider turning area to turn in there. They'll use that, make it much better, at least access from the school side, to give up some land to make that more accessible. Of course, they're going to want to have the school buses going up on that site too. So.
And the roads department is currently studying that intersection to see what can be done due to your guys' comments last time.
Okay, and whether the school district already has plans.
I'm not sure. I can bring that up.
Yeah,
That's new information.
I thought that they were working with the roads department already. Maybe
Yeah. I'll find out.
Any further comments? Next item on the agenda, Public Works Committee.
I can report that out at 90th Street, north of Rosamond Boulevard, where the onion packing shed is, the road is really rough out there. And I learned that next month the county plans on planing the road where the tamarisk trees are. And
That's on 90th?
Yeah, about 3 miles north of, between 3 and 4 miles north of Rosamond.
Okay, moving on to,
Hold on, one more question. Ryan, do you know if there's anything in the works regarding 35th Street West and 40th Street West?
I don't have anything new on that, but your comments have been sent to the roads department. And, I'll follow up and have an answer for you.
Thank you.
okay, any more comments? Moving on to Public Relations Committee. I don't have anything.
Just thank you for reporting on what's going on and bringing out the truth. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank the media also.
You know, before we leave the sustaining committees, I'm available.
Oh, that's right. You want to point to Mr. Shoffner without the C. Please. We used to have, well, it looks like, yeah, we only have safety committee and planning committee. For sure, and public welfare committee. Only have 2 people. You want to be on the 3?
Where do you want to be in this?
A, B, and C, we'll add A, B, and C.
Yeah, so whoever's running those committees, let me know when you want me to show up for a meeting.
Okay, and now for the director's comments. We'll start with Dennis.
Well, wait a second, before we go on there. While we're on the business, it is there that the RMAC meeting, if you look below there, we do have a public forum, I'm going to set up at that time. Anybody have any comments on that? We have Mr. Retired Judge Dan Lamont, ready to be the moderator.
I just asked you.
Well, hang on. Inviting, any objections to inviting the assembly candidates, like to invite school district candidates, RCSD candidates, and a pro-con school bond issue.
Who's working that? Who's doing the,
Well, we normally have one of us moderate, but I think we have Dan Lamont do it.
no, who's doing the invitation to the people? Who's actually reaching out and inviting?
Well, I could do some of that, but I need some help. Do you want to help me?
Because
Nobody's been invited yet?
Well, we invited the assembly guys to come this month, but they said, no, we can't do it this early, so I can invite the assembly guys if you like. And then Southern Kern candidates, Mr. Vince Lett was here earlier, but I don't see anybody else. But we certainly can do that and get the word out there, because there are 3 incumbents and Mr. Vince Lett. RCSD candidate, there's 7 of us.
who can talk about pro-con school?
I'm the chairman of the pro. I can talk about that.
Who's chairman of the plan?
I don't know if there is one.
Okay, so.
So how would you guys like the minutes or what? That Olaf will invite the assembly candidates?
Well, Olaf and Dennis will invite them.
Yeah, we'll work together to make, to reach out to these folks and let them know that they have the opportunity.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I think.
That's it?
Well, are we going to director's comments now?
That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm doing.
Okay.
Okay, Dennis, we'll start with you.
All right. I've always felt that this forum was the best place, if you wanted to go to one meeting and catch up on what's going on in your town, this is the one that comes. Look at the community reports and the good news we have from the sheriff and so forth. I would like to encourage everybody that's in this room, if you know somebody, invite them next time to come out so that those people, they all have the vote. The least we can do is help them be more informed on our community and what's important and what's happening. There was a line from a movie that said, our form of government is advanced citizenship. That requires participation. So other people, by people, for other people, folks getting involved. And that's how we keep our board filled with qualified, top-notch folks. That's how other boards operate. We need to encourage our neighbors and friends. Use the 3-foot rule if you want to help them become more involved. Do you know what the 3-foot rule is? Anybody within 3 feet of you, that's who you talk to. So let me encourage you to have them come out and be a part of helping our community go boldly into the future.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank my fellow board members, Mr. Gilbert, Wright, Spoor, for your declarations in the matter of Perez versus the Rosamond Community Service District Watchdog. Yesterday, the judge released a tentative, and I'll read it for you. Grant special motion to strike defendant. Strike. Grant special motion to strike, period. Defendant, that's me, met his burden to show the alleged statements were made during legislative proceedings, as you stated in your declarations, and in a public forum in connection with issues of public interest. Period. Plaintiff fails to meet the burden to show a reasonable probability of prevailing on the merits of the complaint. That motion was heard this morning. It sounds like the judge is not going to change his mind. We'll let you know when we get the full decision, so you can consider that when you talk on October 16th about how you want to proceed with Mr. Scrivener's letter. I want to thank everybody for coming.
Can you repeat that again for that?
I want to thank everybody for coming. And for those of you who don't know it, Joe Maynard was here earlier. I'd like to thank him. He helped solve the problem that the Rosamond Community Service, or the Rosamond Chamber of Commerce was having on figuring out how to accept money from a member, and it sounded like they've reached a good resolution, so that's good. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. And welcome, Mr. Shoffner. It's good to have you back. Good to have a little humor in here. Sam?
Dennis said it all.
Justin, welcome back. Thanks for coming. Thanks. Have a good time.
I've got the cookies.
And
I can't say any more than what Dennis has said, and I've said the same thing month after month because of the fact that this is a place to come to find out what's going on in the community, and I definitely want to welcome Dennis Shoffner back. I mean, it's been a while, and and Dennis was one of the original RMAC members along with myself, and it's good to see him back on his board. I want to thank you all for coming, and want to encourage you all to keep coming and bring a neighbor, bring a friend, and you'll be surprised if you might find out. I'd like to thank our media as well.
I'd like to thank everyone for being here, and thank you, Phil, for all your instruction and for keeping things in line here tonight. And I certainly have learned from that. And I also, the idea that you ask your neighbor to participate or come to these meetings does work, because Olaf asked me not too long ago, and that's how I actually ended up here. So, I mean, unless you ask somebody, I guess you're not going to show up. I want to welcome you back to Dennis. I never knew you were here to begin with because I'm new. But God bless you and welcome back. And I want to again thank everybody for coming, and that's all I got to say. Okay, so then we need a motion to wait a minute, is there any discussion? I better say that first. Does everybody want to go home?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, then we'll do a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
Third.